from the local station. This is Weather Authority Weekday.
We've got that heat coming in. You're feeling it today. In fact, yesterday we reached 94 degrees and it was hot even at the beach. So gear up for a sunny day, a dry day, and one that will put temperatures near record territory. All right, so mostly clear skies here at 3 o'clock with hot temperatures. We're going to be reaching our high of the day between 3 and 5 o'clock, and over the next couple of days, no change. So you know what's different from yesterday? 2 degrees, that's it. So if you're hot yesterday, you're going to be about as hot as today. But what's interesting is that today we have record highs in contention. Yesterday we were only 94 degrees. You had to get up closer to 100 to break a record. Today our record is 96. So we have the potential for seeing records just today and through the weekend. Cloud cover is back across Tennessee towards our north. That's where you'll find some rain. The steering flow, though, is going to take that rain across Tennessee, northern Georgia, and push it off to the mid-Atlantic. On Saturday, that will be the spot from around the Washington, D.C. area up through New England where there'll be some showers. And notice that bridge that builds in over Georgia. That's the steering flow that will allow these temperatures to sizzle much hotter than normal. So we're moving up the heat earlier in the season and it's sticking around. So today, yeah, we're about 96 degrees area wide. Even along the beaches, we'll have temperatures in the 90s because that westerly wind should tend to push a lot of the heat back towards the coast. So the sand is going to sizzle. The difference here versus say July or August is we don't have dew points in the 70s. That graph there shows some upper 50s for our dew points this afternoon. So some people, especially up north, would say it's too humid here, but by our standards, it's not humid enough to send the feels like index up above 100 degrees. So that's somewhat of a respite from the really high humidity that we'd get in the summer that would lead to feels like temperatures, which would be up around 100 to 10. Our feels like index is going to be about as warm as our air temperature on the thermometer, maybe just like 98 to 99 on your feels like scale. All right, so where's all the rain? It's there across Kentucky, Tennessee. They're going to be dealing with the rain, not just today, but through the weekend. And today's rainfall amounts could reach as much as 2.5 inches there. Future forecast shows the track of rain pushing through the bluegrass state and then tracking back towards the Virginia area, both West Virginia and Virginia seeing some good steady rains as that front falls apart to the north. So we are going to focus on our area here, our sliver of the pie with the southwest winds pushing those temperatures up. Will be fairly sunny, not much cloud cover around to block the heat. You notice that front dropping southwards Saturday night. That front is really going to lose its gusto as the winds aloft, the jet stream winds, when they go parallel to the front, that puts the brakes on the cold air dropping southward, and where cooler air meets more warmer air, you usually get showers right along that frontal boundary. That front is going to become very weak, and there you see the showers just blowing apart. Now where that front goes stationary, look at how that rain just stays along that boundary. So I think the rain will be mainly to our north through the weekend. You've got no problems. As long as you stay south of Atlanta or anywhere in the state of Florida, conditions look dry. So if you've got theme parks in mind, weather is going to be really hot there. If you've got some boating in mind, conditions look really good for the boaters as well, since seas are going to be flat, 2 to 3 foot waves. And you know what? Compared to last weekend, this is going to be really a big 180-degree turn. Instead of those 5-foot seas and rough conditions, it's pretty smooth out there. Winds are going to be pretty light, and instead of the red flags flying for rip currents, look for the greens, because the seas will be only about a foot near shore, and we're looking at maybe knee-high surf for longboarders at best. So good weekend to get out there and do some swimming. Water temperatures are in the upper 70s, and there you see a very low risk for rip current conditions with slightly higher conditions down towards central Florida. So the next 3 days, carbon copies of each other. We are pushing into the 90s, mid-90 degree readings, and then if you're looking for the cool down, yeah, 90 degrees, that's a little bit cooler, but it's a step in the right direction, right? So what we're going to see on Thursday is that another stronger front get closer to us, Might bring in some isolated showers now. It's really not looking particularly wet, but I do think we'll drop back into the 80s as we head into Friday and for the upcoming weekend. So you can kind of look ahead and see how warm it's going to be, and the heat is going to be with us. But coming up, I've got some cool pictures to show you, literally under the water cool, and they are cool to see visually. So we're going to talk about what the rain did to the latest drought for our area. We're going to look at some cool underwater pictures and also talk more about the heat right after this break. Welcome back. We are talking about big changes to the drought monitor. We were under a drought, which was that color that you see in tan over all of Duval County. And the good news is that after the heavy rainfall that we had, some places as much as 6 inches, the drought has dropped further south, and it's been replaced by dry area, that yellow shading in Duval. But there's still a moderate drought from St. Augustine to Palatka, and then south of there, those orange colors, you're still under a severe drought in that area. So I do think that the drought conditions will get worse as we head through this period of the hot spell. We're going to be seeing more in the way of higher heat and dry conditions. So obviously that's not going to improve the situation. I wrote a story about the heat here in our area and how temperatures are going to be near record levels here. So we're seeing that over the next couple of days, kind of like what I talked about, the heat coming at us the next several days will set us into record territory. Take a look here. You can see that this was interesting. So I looked at the averages over the past 20 years and how many times Jacksonville hit 90 degrees. And the average during the 20-year period is 82 days out of the year are 90 degrees or higher. And then looking at, like, say, conditions like today, when we get into the mid 90 degree range from 95 or higher, on average, each year sees 18 of those days. Now, last year, we were at 90 degrees for 92 days. So, you know, we are used to the 90 degree heat. And the story isn't that, you know, it's hot because it's always hot, but the heat is coming in early in the year. You know, usually our temperature in May is about 86 degrees, but last year in 2024, the heat arrived, our first 96 degree day was a week earlier than what we're experiencing this year. So it can happen in this time of the year where we get these heat waves coming through, and conditions are definitely ripe for the heat. You know, if we are going to be 96 degrees, at least you can look at this. And they're surveying the coral reef. You don't see a lot of color on there, and that's because the reefs have problems due to coral bleaching and the issues that they face with turbidity running off from the Everglades into the Keys across the Florida Bay. It makes the water not as clear, and coral reefs need clear water for the algae to thrive. But look at this. You can see some of the fish around there and the divers going underwater. So this is out of the University of Miami, and the Rosenstiel School there. They do a lot of this coral reef research. So I'm going to show you what's happening under the water right now live. You can go to this website on YouTube. Coral City is what it is, and you can see some sergeant majors. Those are those fish with stripes on them. They're swimming around the brain coral. I was watching this earlier. I saw some parrotfish swim by, some French angelfish. But what's even cooler is that this is in the harbor. If you've ever gone on a cruise in Miami out of the port of Miami, Miami Harbor, this camera is there. And remarkably, these corals are actually very resilient to all that marine traffic. And this camera has been in place for several years, and you can always, I tell you what, if you want a relaxing way to pass some time, just pop that camera on YouTube, and as you can see, it's called Coral City Camera, and it's an underwater live stream. I'd love to know how they keep the barnacles off of that. And this is what it saw. This was a lemon shark swimming by the camera. So if you go to Coral City Cameras, you can see their YouTube channel, or not their YouTube, their Instagram. A little freaky, right? To see the jaws of that thing. You can see some remoras attached to it. Those are fish clinging. There goes a French angelfish. But the way the jaws protrude on that, Lemon are not particularly fierce, so I feel pretty good about that. But here's a parrotfish in blue swimming by. And parrotfish, they actually eat the coral. They chomp on it, and most of the sand that you see, if it's not weathered and broken down, it has passed through the digestive system of a parrotfish. They are responsible for most of the sand that washes up on the Keys because they break it off and poop it out, and that makes some of the beach sand there. This is another cool feature here because you're going to have to like go to the Instagram site, but you can actually see coral bleaching taking place. So look there, see the white spots developing and then contracting. This is a time lapse of over 600 days. So we're talking about 2 years worth of time lapse on that camera, and you can see the white spots developing there on that brain coral. So what's happening is there is algae that lives on the coral, and these coral polyps have a symbiotic relationship with the zooxanthellae algae. And if that algae gets, if it dies off due to heat, then the reef cannot survive because the algae produces sugars, and the coloring there is the algae. When that dies off, the whole reef system dies off. The brain coral is a little bit more durable compared to like the finger coral, the staghorn coral, but it's a pretty cool time lapse there, and it's gotten a lot of views. And finally, if you are going to cool off at the beaches, you may notice in Hanna Park extra sea oats that were placed on the sand dunes. And as you may or may not know, the sea oats are those types of plants that really, the roots trap the sand in there and it builds up the sand dunes. The higher the sand dune, the better protection you have. And you can see from these photos there, the folks working, these are actually Jaguars, some members of the Jaguars operation team out there putting the seedlings in at Hanna Park and portions of Atlantic Beach, and they're interviewing one of the Army Corps, Jack's Army Corps engineers. So those boardwalks, so important to use those versus cutting through the sea oats. They get you up and over, and the foot traffic can eventually erode some of those sea oats. And as we saw, I forget which hurricane it was, but where the water came through, it must have been maybe Irma, where the brakes are, like at the Lifeguard Center. We need that brake so that the emergency vehicles can get through there. But when the water gushed through that walk-through pass where the cars go through, you can see how the barrier island or the sand dunes really do protect and keep that water when back on the beaches. All right, so we covered a lot of things here on the Weather Authority Weekday. It is a Friday. It is time for a weekend break, and hopefully you can find your own little solitude, maybe a regulator and a dive tank, and float under the water. Yeah, diving sounds good to me on a hot day like this. Make the most of your weekend. I'm meteorologist Mark Collins, over and out.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.